Hello and welcome back to Cheat Codes. I'm your host, Tosh, and I just got back from GDC. As you may already know, conferences like that are massive. They can be loud, they can be overwhelming, and everyone in that space is willing to give you advice from people in the lecture halls to people you meet on the conference floor. Unfortunately, a lot of that advice is pretty disconnected from reality. A lot of industry veterans stand on stages or they come to you and they give you top down advice like, just weather the storm, or the industry always recalibrates. That's my least favorite one. But when you actually look at the data, the people who absorb the hardest impact of those shifts are marginalized people. Women of color in the tech and gaming industry have suffered the highest percentage of layoffs. So telling someone to just weather the storm isn't exactly great advice or even great mentorship. It is an erasure of their reality. As we all know, the layoff policy is last in, first out. So it makes sense that the people who were hardest hit right now are the people who look like me. But this year, while at GDC, we decided to do something a little bit different. We took the power leveling series that we usually do live on Discord, and it's usually not recorded, and we took it to a physical room. And I got to co-host the session with the illustrious Mike Knox. Now, Mike is a incredible leadership and team development expert, and it's always an honor to work with him. And this is Mike Knox.
Awesome. Hi, everybody. It's always fun to go after Tosh. It's like poetic and beautiful and amazing. I'm like, hi, I'm Mike. Hi, I'm Mike Knox, or Mike. Either is fine. Many Mikes in the world, so feel free to call me Mike Knox. He, him pronouns, and I have the great pleasure this year of getting to co-host Power Leveling. But
So the goal of our in-person power leveling session was simple. We didn't want to talk about good intentions. We wanted to talk about friction. We needed to talk about friction. I asked everyone at the table to introduce themselves and then to explicitly point out a point of friction that they experience in these industry spaces. And I started with my own. We'd love for you to introduce yourselves, but as you introduce yourselves, please consider sharing a point of friction that you've noticed in this event. It's like a point of friction for me. Every time I go into a room and I'm the only one that looks like me, that's an immediate point of friction. Does it mean that it's a bad thing? No, but for me, it's something that I'm making a note of because I don't know why that's true for this space. When you give people permission to drop the networking mask, the truth of the industry comes out immediately. The friction that people share wasn't about tools or budgets. It was about how we treat each other.
So my name is Ioana. I was actually a software engineer at Xbox, and now I'm back in school working on my master's degree, which I'm hoping to kind of roll into the game that I'm also working on. I worked with Wig there, so that was meaning gaming at Xbox, and haven't got introduced to Wiggy because we did an event with them.
Yes,
And
that was
I-
me. I was
and
there.
Oh yes, I know. I feel bad that you're the only one. I've been following you for a while. I've actually also done the mentorship program as I've had time. It is definitely something that you want to focus on and spend a lot of time doing. So as I have time, I do it. And the biggest point of friction that I've encountered here is that there's still kind of a bit of a toxic meritocracy I have found in talking to people, even though that I know a lot of people at studios in Xbox, those people like I'm really comfortable talking with, but just kind of ice breaking and talking to other people. Everyone's just so interested in your title and like the thing that you've worked on and and less focused on like the difference you want to make essentially with what you're doing. So I would love it if I could find people that had a different mindset in addition to being really kick-ass at making games.
toxic meritocracy, transactional networking. This is the exact type of environment that conferences like these can breed. We're taught to prepare for them by polishing our resumes and shining up our LinkedIn pages, practicing our elevator pitches, just so we can prove our worth to people who only care about what we can extract from them, or vice versa. But when we operate like that, incredible talent gets left behind. What about the people trying to break in?
Well, this is my second time here in GDC. Right now, I'm showcasing in the All Control GDC area. Yeah, there's a
Love
lot
that
of crazy
space.
games over there, so if you want to go,
Yes.
check it out.
Uh-huh.
But one friction that I found these last days is that whenever you present yourself as a student, especially, there are some people that may stop taking you that seriously.
Yeah, I noticed that too. I'm
Yeah.
also a student.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you may notice that too.
absolutely.
So yes, I usually just tend to present myself by my role instead of saying that I'm a student. But still, I think that could be a change of mindset for everyone because
Right.
even students have a lot to offer in the industry.
Nathaly is exactly right. Students have so much to offer, but in a top-down, transactional industry, their value is dismissed often from the very first conversation, from when someone sees student across a name tag. It's usually dismissed until they earn a specific title, but how can they even earn that title? So this brings us to the hardest, most necessary part of advocacy, and that's acknowledging privilege. Privilege is not a bad word, it's just a mechanism, it's a tool, it's a key that opens doors. In the room, Alissa, a production director, broke down exactly how that key changes the friction you experience.
My friction point, I guess I have less friction points these days because I've been in the industry a long time, because I'm Caucasian, because my title is what it is. But I definitely see the difference with this title than I did when I was a senior producer or something like that. When you're sort of in the middle, it's very different. And when I walk up to people and I'm at a director level, I feel like I am getting taken more seriously. So it's similar to, it is the first thing people say is like, "Oh, hi, what do you do?
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing? And what are you doing in the industry? What's your role?" Right. And instead of saying, well, I don't know, what got you into games or
Yeah.
something, there are other questions that you can ask people that are also more valuable.
Now, that's the quiet part that we don't often say out loud. The fact that people are taken more seriously not only by their titles, but how they present. So, giving this kind of cookie cutter advice to people, like just speak up more, doesn't exactly work the same for a Black woman or a junior dev of color. Because I know from experience that when a Black woman speaks up, she's navigating cultural bias that might label her as angry rather than assertive, especially if she's neurodivergent, speaks differently, or presents differently. This is why we need to shift from this sort of top-down mentorship to peer-to-peer mentorship. I think with that shift, we can operate laterally.
Hi, I'm Ariana. I am the production manager at Women in Games International. So I help run the live streams. I run the live streams. I also host our interview sessions, which is an amazing opportunity to pick the brains of people recruiting in the industry. So that's been amazing. I would say my biggest point of friction that I have experienced at GDC is most of my experience feels very gaming adjacent instead of a direct game developing experience or like actually creating the games. So I would say similar to a student, people don't look at me and say necessarily I have a lot to offer because what I'm doing right now is adjacent.
What does it all mean? It means that we will stop trying to teach each other how to endure a broken system, and instead, we build safety nets. It means that we start talking about the actual data about layoffs. It means that if a peer is about to articulate a hard truth in a meeting, we coordinate to act as a shield for them, not only validating their point immediately, but understanding that their leadership might be weaponized against them because of how they present. We have to decode the room together.
Well, a lot of the coaching I do is on Clifton Strengths as a tool to inform that coaching. And so I'll just give you a quick example. There are lots of examples that I could provide, but one of the talent themes is something called command. Command folks who have high command are really great at speaking their mind and tend to have a great deal of confidence. And like, if something needs to be said, I'm going to say it, and are often the ones who like address the elephant in the room, right? And it's like, we're going to work our way through this, and can, if they're not careful, show up being really
Bullish.
yeah, that's a great word for it. So,
Yeah.
and what I've seen in working with teams is oftentimes when it's a man, and especially a white man who leads with command, there's a lot of like how passionate he is, right? And then if it's any woman, it's like, wow, she's really bossy, right? And then particular, I'm thinking of a very specific Black woman who I worked with, and it was, well, she's angry.
Oh, dear.
And was often dealing with that, right? Of like, I'm asking really good questions. I'm asking them directly. I'm helping us solve a problem.
Yep.
And you're looking at me and saying that I'm angry
Yeah.
because because you're uncomfortable with these questions, right? And so naming those things, I think in a space like this, in throughout the conference, I think being vigilant, I don't have to be vigilant, right? I am perfectly safe in most spaces without being vigilant. That's not true for everybody. It's how do those of us who get to be comfortable challenge that a little bit and say, you know what? No, I'm going to be a little uncomfortable, and I'm going to keep my eyes out, and I'm going to watch. And when I struggle at like the social events, they're very loud and I have a hard time,
So loud.
but I go to some of them, and it's like, yeah, if I see something happening, I need to maybe step in. I need to have a conversation, whatever that looks like. And I know that I can do that and be safer than other people can be.
So how do we actually decode these spaces? How do we change the temperature? How do we move away from this constant feeling of transactional networking based on how someone presents or their title? I think it could start with how we introduce ourselves.
I really hate people ice breaking with what's your favorite game? Because like when everybody was playing Baldur's Gate, like everybody said Baldur's Gate. And so I'm like, I don't know anybody from anybody. So yeah, I like those. That I guess is partly a friction point is like, I feel a lot of people wanting to network, wanting to know what your role is and maybe what you can do for them, or right, instead of really getting to know each other. And I make an extra effort to do that, but I don't know that everybody does.
That's well said. And I think something that I didn't realize I did, because I do ask people what made them get into games, and I think that's how.
Well, what
I
do you
end up
get? How did you get into games? That's very cool. I want to know somebody's story.
What if the antidote is something that we already do in this space? The games are stories. We're storytellers. So what if we search for the stories in each other? At the very beginning of the session, I mentioned why I do this work. I'm a community builder in almost every space I occupy, and I think it's time for me to admit that. Not only am I doing community management and marketing, but I am often building community in spaces like these. And I mentioned to people that when I build communities, I want them to be built with foundation of care first. And I think I left GDC with absolute proof that building that foundation works. For the Get in the Game program, Wiki brings 10 mentees from all across the US to a complete program that teaches them how to be their best selves in these networking spaces. And the mentees that I got to spend time with that week were absolutely brilliant. Not only did they ask amazing questions, they approached every opportunity with curiosity. Curiosity is a foundation of kindness. And before we left, one of them handed me a handwritten note and thanked me for being kind. She told me that she felt safe with me. And that note probably made me cry more tears than I should have, but that is the whole point of advocacy. When people feel safe, they innovate, they speak up, and they build better games. I think we can make the best of spaces like GDC, beyond just business connections. We can make real connections. We could force meaningful change. But it starts by actively turning the keys we hold to open the doors and creating an environment where people coming up behind us feel safe enough to walk through them. Thank you to everyone who joined us for the power leveling session at GDC, and a massive thank you to Mike Knox for co-hosting and for helping hold that space. And thank you, Women in Games International, for making it possible. If you hold a key to an important space this week, I hope you turn it. I'll see you next time on Cheat Codes.
So thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your energy. Thank you for your conversation. This has been enlightening in more ways than I can describe. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Flowers.